two players, played on a board consisting of 24 narrow triangles called points. The triangles alternate in color and are grouped into 4 quadrants of 6 triangles each. The quadrants are referred to as a player's home board and outer board. The opponent's home board and outer board. The home and outer boards are separated from each other by a ridge down the center of the board called the bar. The points are numbered for either player starting in that player's home board. The outermost is the 24 point, which is also the opponent's 1 point. Each player has 15 checkers of his own color. The initial arrangement of the checkers is 2 on each player's 24 point, 5 on each player's 13 point, 3 on each player's 8 point, and 5 on each player's 6 point. Both players have their own pair of dice and a dice cup used for shaking. A doubling cube with the numerals 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64 on its faces is used to keep track of the current stake of the game. The object of the game is to move all your checkers into your own home board and then bear them off. The first player to bear off all of their checkers wins the game. To start the game, each player throws a single die. This determines both the player to go first and the numbers to be played. If equal numbers come up, then both players roll again until they roll different numbers. The player throwing the higher number now moves his his checkers according to the numbers showing on both dice. After the first roll, the players throw 2 dice and alternate turns. The roll of the dice indicates how many points or pips the player is to move his checkers. The checkers are always moved forward to a lower number point. The following rules apply. A checker may be moved only to an open point, one that is not occupied by 2 or more opposing checkers. The numbers on the 2 dice constitute separate moves. For example, if a player rolls a 5 and 3, he may move 1 checker 5 spaces to an open point, and another checker 3 spaces to an open point. Or he may move 1 checker a total of 8 spaces to an open point, but only if the intermediate point, either 3 or 5 spaces from the starting point, is also open. A player who rolls doubles plays the number shown on the dice twice. A roll of 6 and 6 means that the player has 4 sixes to use, and he may move any combination of checkers he feels appropriate to complete this requirement. A player must use both numbers of a roll, if this is legally possible, or all 4 numbers of a double. When only 1 number can be played, the player must play that number. Or if either number can be played but not both, the player must play the larger one. When neither number can be used, the player loses his turn. In the case of doubles, when all 4 numbers cannot be played, the player must play as many numbers as he can. A point occupied by a single checker of either color is called a blot. If an opposing checker lands on a blot, the blot is hit and placed on the bar. Anytime a player has 1 or more checkers on the bar, his first obligation is to enter those checkers into the opposing home board. A checker is entered by moving it to an open point corresponding to one of the numbers on the roll dice. For example, if a player rolls 4 and 6, he may enter a the opponent's checkers. If neither point is open, the player loses his turn. If a player is able to enter some, but not all of his checkers, he must enter as many as he can, and then forfeit the remainder of his turn. After the last of the checkers has been entered, any unused numbers on the dice must be played by moving either the checker that was entered or a different checker. Once a player has moved all of his 15 checkers into his home board, he may commence bearing off. A player bears off a checker by rolling a number that corresponds to the point on which the checker resides, and then removing that checker from the board. Thus, rolling a 6 permits the player to remove a checker from the 6 point. If there is no checker on the point indicated by the roll, the player must make a legal move using a checker on a higher numbered point. If there are no checkers on higher numbered points, the player is permitted and required to remove a checker from the highest point on which one of his checkers resides. A player is under no obligation to bear off if he can make an otherwise legal move. A player must have all of his active checkers in his home board in order to bear off. If a checker is hit during the bear-off process, the player must bring that checker back to his home board before continuing to bear off. The first player to bear off all 15 checkers wins the game. Backgammon is played for an agreed stake per point. Each game starts at 1 point. During the course of the game, a player who feels he has a sufficient advantage may propose doubling the stakes. He may do this only at the start of his own turn and before he has rolled the dice. A player who is offered a double may refuse, in which case he concedes the game and pays 1 point. Otherwise, he must accept the double and play on for the new higher stakes. A player who accepts a double becomes refuses every devil, he must pay the number of points that were at stake prior to the redouble. Otherwise, he becomes the new owner of the cube, and the game continues at twice the previous stakes. There is no limit to the number of redoubles in a game. At the end of the game, if the losing player has borne off at least one checker, he loses only the value showing on the doubling cube. 1 point if there have been no doubles. However, if the loser has not borne off any of his checkers, he is gammoned and loses twice the value of the doubling cube. Or worse, if the loser has not borne off any of his checkers and still has a checker on the bar or in the winner's home board, he is backgammoned and loses 3 times the value of the doubling cube. The following optional rules are in widespread use. Automatic doubles. If identical numbers are thrown on the first roll, the stakes are doubled. The doubling cube is turned to 2 and remains in the middle. Players usually agree to limit the number of automatic doubles to 1 per game. Beavers. When a player is doubled, he may immediately redouble Beaver while retaining possession of the cube. The original doubler has the option of accepting or refusing as with a normal double. The Jacoby rule. Gammons and backgammons only count as a single game if neither player has offered a double during the course of the game. This rule speeds up play by eliminating situations where a player avoids doubling so he can play on for a gammon. The dice must be rolled together and land flat on the surface of the right-hand section of the board. The player must re-roll both dice. If a die lands outside the right-hand board or lands on a checker, is illegal, the opponent has the option of accepting the play as made or of requiring the player to make a legal play. A play is deemed to have been accepted as made when the opponent rolls his dice or offers a double to start his own turn. If a player rolls before his opponent has completed his turn by picking up the dice, the player's roll is voided. This rule is generally waived any time a play is forced or when there is no further contact between the opposing forces. White rolls 6. Oops. Brown rolls 1. So 6 and 1, 4. White to start. 6 and 1. 2 and 4. 2, 3, 4. 2. 6. Stuck here, okay. 6. Stuck again. 1. Ouch, do we call it dice?